For over a century, we've pictured Megalodon. We've seen it in movies and documentaries and in our nightmares. The image is always the same, a great white shark, but scaled up to the size of a bus. A perfect, streamlined killing machine, just bigger, stronger, and more terrifying. But what if I told you that this image, this icon of prehistoric horror that we all know, is almost certainly wrong? What if the real Otodos Megalodon was something far stranger, more elongated, and ultimately, more mysterious than we ever imagined? The story of how we are discovering the true shape of this ancient predator is a fascinating tale of scientific detective work, where every clue is a single tooth, and the biggest discovery of all has just rewritten the entire case file. Megalodon was, without a doubt, a true titan of the ancient seas. For nearly 20 million years, it reigned as the undisputed apex predator, a carnivore so large that its very existence shaped the evolution of the oceans. And everything in it, particularly the great whales that were its preferred prey. Understanding just how big this shark was isn't just a fun thought experiment for a monster movie. It's crucial to understanding our planet's past. A larger body size means it could travel vast transoceanic distances, that it had virtually no natural predators, and that it could retain body heat far more efficiently, giving us profound insights into its biology and its impact on the global marine ecosystem. The problem, the great frustration for paleontologists, is that Megalodon left us almost nothing to work with. As a shark, its skeleton was made of cartilage, the same flexible material in our ears and noses. Unlike bone, cartilage rarely survives the fossilization process. It decays and disappears, leaving behind a ghost in the geological record. All we really have are its teeth. Fortunately, Megalodon teeth are abundant, magnificent, and built to last. Some are larger than a human hand, with serrated edges still sharp enough to feel dangerous millions of years after their owner died. For decades, these teeth, along with a few rare fossilized vertebrae, were our only windows into the life of this incredible animal. The quest to determine Megalodon's size began over a century ago, and the early days were something of a scientific Wild West. Paleontologists in the early 20th century, working with the first discovered teeth, had only one real point of comparison: the modern great white shark. The teeth looked superficially similar, and both were apex predators. It seemed logical to assume that Megalodon was simply a scaled-up version of its modern counterpart. This led to some truly breathtaking estimates. A 1909 paper proposed a total length of 24.4 meters, or a staggering 80 feet. Not to be outdone, a 1922 publication suggested it could reach 30.5 meters, or 100 feet long. To put that into perspective, the largest fish alive today, the gentle, filter-feeding whale shark, has a record length of 18.8 meters. These early estimates portrayed a creature of almost mythical proportions. They were heavily influenced by a now infamous report from 1870 of a great white shark that was allegedly over 11 meters or 36 feet long. This report is now universally considered an error, perhaps a mismeasurement or a fisherman's exaggeration that found its way into official records. But for decades, this giant great white was cited as a valid data point, skewing all the calculations for its prehistoric relative and giving birth to the legend of the 100-foot Megalodon. It wasn't until the 1990s that scientists began applying more rigorous, data-driven methods. Researchers painstakingly measured the front upper teeth of numerous modern great white sharks of known body lengths. By doing this, they could create a clear mathematical relationship. If a great white of this size has a tooth of that size, then a Megalodon with a much larger tooth must have been proportionally larger. Using accurately measured great whites, a 1996 paper arrived at a more conservative estimate of 15.9 meters. Just over 52 feet. The age of scientific reason seemed to have tamed the monster at least a little, but the science was far from settled. In 2002, a paleontologist named Kenshu Shimada, a name that would become central to the Megalodon story, introduced a new level of precision. He noticed a problem with using the entire tooth for scaling. As a shark grows, the crown, which is the visible blade-like part, and the root, which is embedded in the jaw, do not grow at the same rate. This inconsistency could introduce errors into the calculations. Shimada proposed a new technique: measure only the height of the tooth's crown. This was not only more accurate, he argued, but it also allowed scientists to use fossils where the delicate root had broken off, expanding the available dataset. Using this refined method, he calculated a slightly smaller average maximum size of 15.1 meters, or about 49.5 feet. Yet even this method had its critics. The biggest issue, as Shimada himself would later address in a 2019 revision of his own work, was the problem of tooth position. A shark's jaw is a complex toolkit with teeth of different sizes and shapes in different positions. The front teeth are different from the side teeth, and the upper teeth are different from the lower teeth. Shimada discovered that for a great white shark, the most reliable tooth for predicting total body length was the second anterior tooth on the upper jaw. The problem is, when you find a single isolated megalodon tooth in a riverbed or on a beach, how do you know which position it came from? It's like finding a single unidentified bolt and trying to use it to calculate the exact size of the car it fell from. Assuming the wrong position could lead to wildly different size estimates. Furthermore, this entire method hinged on knowing the dental formula of Megalodon, the exact number and arrangement of its teeth. And despite finding some associated sets of teeth, we have never found a complete, fully articulated Megalodon jaw. This means the jaw reconstructions you often see in museums, with their rows of terrifying teeth, are educated guesses. Typically based on, you guessed it, the great white shark. But what if Megalodon's dental plan was completely different? This leads us to the biggest assumption of all, the one that underpinned a century of research. The idea that the great white shark is a good modern analog for Megalodon. For a long time, Megalodon was even classified in the same genus as Carcharodon megalodon. This was based on the simple fact that their teeth looked alike. But modern evolutionary science and more detailed anatomical studies have revealed a different story. Megalodon was not the great white's ancestor, nor was it a close cousin. It belonged to a completely separate and now entirely extinct family of sharks, called the Odontidae. The evolutionary lineage that led to Megalodon split off from the one that led to the great white shark around 115 million years ago, back when dinosaurs still dominated the land. They were two very different branches of the shark family tree that independently evolved into large, apex predators. Using the great white to reconstruct Megalodon's body might be as misleading as using a wolf to reconstruct the body of a thylacine, the extinct Tasmanian tiger. Both were dog-like predators, but their underlying biology was worlds apart. Recognizing this problem, a 2020 study tried a new approach. Instead of relying solely on the great white, a team of paleontologists created a 2D reconstruction of Megalodon by taking anatomical measurements from 4 other modern lamniform sharks that share a similar active, predatory lifestyle: the shortfin and longfin mako sharks, the salmon shark, and the porbeagle. By combining data from all 5 species, they extrapolated the body dimensions for a 16-meter or 52.5-foot Megalodon. The result was an animal of epic proportions: a head nearly 4.65 meters long, a dorsal fin towering 1.62 meters high, and a tail that measured 3.85 meters from tip to tip. This model suggested a shark that was more robust and stockier than a great white of the same length. This work culminated in a groundbreaking 2022 study. The same team of paleontologists took their 2D model and created a full 3D digital reconstruction. Their work was centered on an almost miraculous fossil, a specimen unearthed in Belgium way back in the 1860s. It wasn't a complete skeleton, but it was the next best thing: a single associated vertebral column preserving 141 vertebrae from one individual megalodon. This fossil was the Rosetta Stone of megalodon anatomy. The researchers 3D scanned this precious backbone, combined it with scans of a fossilized megalodon skull structure and teeth, and then used their multi-species data to flesh out the digital model. The result was a scientifically backed vision of the living animal. It was a thick, powerful, and incredibly formidable predator. Based on this model, a 16-meter megalodon would have weighed a staggering 61,560 kilograms. They inferred it was a transoceanic superpredator, capable of cruising at faster average speeds than any shark alive today, and powerful enough to hunt and consume prey the size of a modern killer whale in just a few bites. The Belgian specimen itself was estimated to be 15.9 meters long, and by scaling up from even larger isolated vertebrae found elsewhere, the team supported a maximum length of 20 meters or 65.6 feet as plausible. This seemed to be the definitive answer. The science had progressed, the assumptions were refined, and we finally had our Megalodon, a stocky, supercharged behemoth. But then, in January of 2024, the entire field was turned on its head. A new study, with Kenshu Shimada as one of its lead authors, re-examined the exact same Belgian specimen and came to a shocking conclusion. The 2022 model, they argued, was fundamentally flawed. Their reasoning was devastatingly simple. They pointed to an older study from the 1990s that had also tried to estimate the length of the Belgian specimen. That study used the classic method. It measured the width of the largest vertebra and applied the scaling relationship from modern great white sharks. The result was a total body length of 9.2 meters, or about 30 feet. Here comes the twist. The authors of the 2022 study had physically measured the length of the preserved vertebral column itself, the actual backbone, and found it was 11.1 meters long, or 36.4 feet. Let that sink in. The calculation based on the great white model produced a shark that was 2 meters shorter than its own backbone. This was the smoking gun. It was a logical impossibility that proved, once and for all, that Megalodon did not have the same body proportions as a great white shark. To accommodate an 11.1-meter vertebral column, the animal must have been significantly longer and more slender. All the estimates based on the great white, from the early 100-foot monsters to the more recent 15 to 20-meter reconstructions, were likely wrong. They had been trying to fit a long, serpentine animal into the body plan of a compact, torpedo-shaped one. The 2024 paper argued that Megalodon was proportionally much more elongated, and therefore, all previous size estimates were probably underestimates of its true length. This new revelation was supported by other emerging lines of evidence. In 2023, Shimada and his colleagues analyzed newly discovered placoid scales, the tiny, tooth-like structures that make up a shark's skin, from a Megalodon fossil in Japan. The structure of these scales, with broad, widely spaced keels, is not found in fast-swimming sharks like makos or great whites. Instead, they are consistent with modern sharks that are slow, deliberate cruisers, such as the bizarre goblin shark or the giant megamouth shark. This directly contradicted the 3D model's conclusion of a high-speed cruiser, suggesting instead that Megalodon was a relatively slow swimmer. That relied on short, powerful bursts of speed to ambush its prey. Another pillar of the great white analogy also began to crumble. Megalodon was long thought to be regionally endothermic, meaning it could keep parts of its body warmer than the surrounding water. This is a trait shared by modern lamnid sharks and is linked to their energetic, high-performance lifestyle. The logic was that, since Megalodon was an endotherm, it must have had a body plan similar to other endothermic sharks. However, in 2023, two revolutionary papers discovered that the basking shark and the small-toothed sand tiger shark are also regional endotherms. The basking shark is an enormous, slow-moving filter feeder, and the sand tiger is a deep-water bottom dweller. Neither has the classic, torpedo-like body of a lamnid. This proved that being a warm-bodied shark does not require you to look like a great white. The link between metabolism and body shape was broken, further weakening the case for using lamnids as a model. So, where does this leave us? After a century of research, we have come full circle. The 2024 paper essentially concludes that everyone has been getting it wrong. The 15 to 20 meter estimates that have become common knowledge are probably too short. The real Megalodon was likely a longer, more slender animal than we ever depicted, but by how much? The authors caution that until we find a more complete fossil, perhaps even a full-body impression, we simply cannot make a reliable estimate of its true length. The scientific quest has led us not to a final answer, but to a deeper, more profound mystery. The big fishy of death has shed its familiar skin as a great white on steroids and has become something new, something unknown. This is the beauty and the frustration of paleontology. Every new discovery has the potential to rewrite everything we thought we knew. The debate is far from over, and somewhere out there, buried in rock, the fossils that hold the final answer are waiting to be found. The true image of the ancient ocean's greatest predator remains, for now, tantalizingly out of reach. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the science of Megalodon. If you found this journey through paleontological history as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more explorations into our planet's incredible past. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of this new, slender look for Megalodon?